Hello again, and welcome to another episode of Super Turbo 64, the podcast in which two friends gather, typically at a dining room table, and just shoot the shit about video games for an hour or so.
Pew, 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 pew. It's me shooting shit. I'm Jeff Ross. This is Jason Vandervoort.
Howdy do.
I do well. Is that a question or
I think so.
a greeting? I don't know.
It's a little bit of both.
Howdy do.
It's a lot like how you been doing.
Yeah.
You know, it's similar. But yeah, no. As I was just kind of recently stating, this is the first time that we are recording in a new setup.
We've recorded at this house before, but
not like here in
right.
this specific location. I forgot that we recorded some of the very earliest episodes over in the living room.
Yeah.
But yeah, we are currently recording over at Jeff's house. Within the last month, I have been kind of slowly getting stuff over here, and my girlfriend Techie and I are moving in.
I think you're all moved in.
We are pretty much, yeah.
Save stuff every once in a while.
Yeah, save for some stuff that's at my dad's or her mom's. I'd say by and large, the loft is prepared.
I like that you call it the loft. It makes it sound a lot fancier than it really is.
Yeah, exactly. It is. I mean, in reality, it is just the upstairs of this house. There is really no loft. I don't get to overlook the living room, but still, the loft sounds nice. So
yeah.
we've opted to call it that. But yeah, and since we're all here now, and also the rest of the production crew is here.
Yeah, we got our sound engineer. You'll hear some bumps and bings from
Probably.
Johan the cat.
And our public relations dog, Einstein, is in the other room taking a nap.
Media manager.
Yeah, our social media manager. He's asleep at the wheel, but I mean, when he's up, he does a really good job.
Yeah. He tweets like mad.
He really does.
Yeah. It's been nice having you guys here.
Yeah, it has been really nice. I've been enjoying this quite a lot.
Yeah. So, Jason, what you been playing?
So, basically, I have been kind of taking a very leisurely pace at going through the Mass Effect trilogy again. The BioWare just released their Legendary Edition remaster of the original Mass Effect trilogy, and so I've been just kind of going through that, when I have a little bit of time here and there. It's the Mass Effect games, specifically 2 and 3, are some of my favorite games of all time. Since I played them on the PlayStation 3, I didn't have access to Mass Effect 1 until a lot later. I had already played through the other games by that point, and Mass Effect 1 is just a lot worse.
Sure, it's slower. I think it has a good story.
It's got a great story, yeah, but a lot of its other elements are just really date it and make it feel far clunky. The combat, the animation and graphics for it are not ideal, but it's still worth the time to play it.
Yeah.
So I'm still currently on Mass Effect 1, but I don't know. Before too much longer, I'm going to be in my golden age of Mass Effect, which is Mass Effect 2. So I'm immensely pumped. And then it's funny, I've also been a little bit here and there. I've also been playing Trails in the Sky again, which funny enough is I think it's the first game that I talked about on this podcast.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but it's I had put it down for quite a while.
Yeah.
But recently I was just thinking, man, I need that JRPG comfort food in my belly. And I remembered that I hadn't finished Trails in the Sky yet. So, kind of digging back into that a little bit.
Pretty typical JRPG? Is it turn-based combat?
It's turn-based, yeah. All of the Trails games have a similar style combat. It's got some things that make it slightly different. But, all the Trails games have this super cool lore and story world that it's all set in, which is, I don't know, it's fantastic to experience.
Sure.
Yeah, and it's been incredibly enjoyable, especially since, kind of like with Mass Effect, I didn't start at the beginning.
Right.
So being able to backtrack and kind of maybe gain extra significance into some of the things that I've experienced in other games has been nice.
The only series I can think of right off the top of my head that I started in the middle was Mass Effect 2. No, Mafia 2.
Mafia 2. Yeah, right.
I did play Mass Effect 1, which was I liked it quite a bit, and then of course Mass Effect 2 just like
Is awesome.
blew it out of the water.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. You were because you had an Xbox. You
Yeah.
were able to play Mass Effect 1 right away.
But you said you were playing Mafia backwards, right?
I did. I
3,
played
2,
Mafia
1.
completely backwards. I started with 3, then went to 2, and then played the definitive edition of 1 within this past year.
I've been wanting to play that Mafia 1.
You can borrow my copy of it. I've got a physical copy, and yeah, it's a good time.
I appreciate that.
All right.
It's I feel like I'm taking a favor from the mob by taking your copy of Mafia. Like what dark strings are attached?
Someday, though this day may never come, I may call upon you to let me borrow Super Mario Odyssey. Until that day, accept Mafia as a gift.
I would be honored to lend you Mario Odyssey, my godfather.
Godfather. Well, now, how about you? What have you been playing?
I've been playing. Well, I took a little trip to Florida.
You did.
While I was there, I brought my Switch, and in between swimming and walking on the boardwalk and stuff like that, we would chill out in the AC in the room, and I would play some Switch, and
Nice.
I played a lot of Cuphead. That's the main game I've been playing lately. I also played some Mario Tennis, which is fun. I'll get back to Cuphead, but Mario Tennis, like, I'm just shocked that people are still playing that game.
Yeah. Yeah, like I'll frequently come downstairs and you'll be playing a little bit of Mario Tennis, and it's, that game's community has just, I don't exactly know how long the game has been out.
It's been like it's like 3 years now.
Yeah. Not every game, has a community that lasts around that long, or if they do, it's very small, and you oftentimes have to like almost be in a Discord or in a like some sort of community thing just to say like, hey, this is when we're all going to be online playing this game. But so far, Mario Tennis still has enough people that you don't have to do anything like that.
And I've seen like the same names pop up a few times sometimes.
Sure.
Jackson just kicked my ass again, that motherfucker. But like, the game, I hate real life tennis, honestly.
Sure.
Everyone can enjoy their own games, whatever. When I played tennis, though, I'm like, this is just running, and then I miss. I like ping pong. No running.
Ping pong
involved.
is stationary. Yeah, it's kind of a best of both worlds for tennis.
Yeah, but man, something about Mario Tennis Aces is just sick.
It's got
just
exceptionally good game feel.
Yeah, it does. It's got it started out with like 15 characters. They've doubled the size with free DLC.
Shit. That's cool.
And it's every character is like slightly different in terms of like how technical or speedy and defensive and stuff like that they are. And I'm a chain chomp main.
Nice.
It's all about rocking the power shots.
Indeed.
It's too bad that I was really into that game before we started the podcast. I could have done like 20 minutes on Mario Tennis. And everyone would have loved it. It would have been
sure,
amazing.
yeah. It's just what everybody is tuning in to hear.
I'm fighting the urge to go find my Mario Tennis tier list that I wrote down back in the day, and like I had notes on characters. Like,
nice.
Yeah, it's
If you do, we should send out a picture of it.
Okay.
Yep,
yeah.
We'll put our social media manager on it when he's done with his nap.
But
back to Cuphead.
Yeah, no. Cuphead is it's a fantastic game. Something that it's a unique little indie game that really hit the big time again like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It's just like this kind of, maybe it was also like 3 years ago actually, but it's hand animation of 1930s style rubber hose cartoon.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you combine that with this Contra-esque gunplay sort of gameplay, and what you do is you kind of have these big old boss fights. There's a few missions where you're like running and gunning and going through normal platforming areas with your big old pea shooter, but it's
Yeah, I didn't know that the game was predominantly boss fights.
yeah.
I had this kind of misconception in just kind of the fleeting things that I had seen about it in trailers or something. I thought it to be, kind of like you were saying with Contra, I thought it to be, a side-scrolling platformer,
Right.
like shoot 'em up,
You
which
do
it
level
is.
level boss,
Exactly.
that sort of thing. But it's really just like you're sent on a mission from Satan to capture the souls owed to him, the souls, and then I've got I'm on the final island. Well, I think so. World Island 3, and I have one regular boss, and then the final two bosses left,
Cool.
far as I'm aware. But
Sure.
that game has really gotten me thinking about not difficulty once again, because it is a very difficult.
It is, yeah.
difficult
It's
game,
definitely one of the big selling points for it.
Yeah, it's sort of like what happens if we make a super hard indie game and also give it one of the best visual designs ever for an indie game.
And it's super unique too.
Yeah.
I personally haven't encountered a game that uses Cuphead's animation style.
That's because it's so hard and so just how long it takes to do hand drawing. Right?
Yeah, really one of the only other games that I know that did that all hand-drawn animation for everything would be Skullgirls, the tag fighter. Yeah, that's all hand-drawn.
Yeah, it's taken a 6 months or more to develop a single character, because all their frames have to be animated.
Especially when the animation is as fluid
Yeah.
as it is. But no, Cuphead is a beautiful game to watch.
Absolutely. I remember hearing stories about how the team MDHR or something like that they really gambled their livelihood on this concept that
Sure.
they could try and make this new unique game, and it really paid off for them.
Yeah.
So, but the animation, that's kind of our topic for today's episode. Uh-oh, here we come. Sound engineer has something to say.
I've got something to say too.
Oh, no.
He was about to probably shift our mics in a different way, or maybe double check my notes. And I responded with a squirt bottle.
We're busy, buddy.
Indeed.
You got to stay in your lane. We'll contact you when we go on our smoke break.
Exactly. But like you were saying, you've been thinking a lot about animation in games recently.
That's right. I really wonder, for Cuphead especially, how would that game be, how popular would it have been if it had, say, a Smash Bros. Style animation or something like that?
Or pixel art.
Yeah, right?
That's the thing with most indie games that I've encountered, at least, use pixel art.
A lot of them do, and it's sort of shifting now.
Yeah.
I think with the rise of Unity and just being able to use pre-made assets and models and stuff like that, and just being able to make these kind of 3D worlds without, as the pixel art can really be that. Started out as the easiest way to animate.
Exactly. Yeah, it was the way for people who might not have had a background in animation, gave them the tools so that they were able to animate it. And the thing with pixel art specifically is that it's kind of it's like the visual medium that you just antiquate with video games just right out of the bat, because you don't really ever see other things using pixel art, you know?
That's true. Oh God, sorry. The cat is playing with the blinds now. Come on, buddy. I'm gonna put you on the floor. Yeah.
Why don't you take a seat?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, pixel art, it's the thing. Yeah, especially because like a lot of indie games, they've got this thing where they have not necessarily a background in classic games, but a lot of indies have this thing where they're being a tribute
Yeah.
to, say, games that they loved, and it's of that perfect time frame where it's like pixel art was the way that these games were like visualized, and so it made the most sense to use pixel art to kind of create these like love letters or something to them.
And I mean, obviously it goes without saying, like with like the NES and Atari and stuff like that, you had an era where the pixel art was like a necessary part of animation, and like the least pixelated games, the less pixelated you got once you jump from like to the double bit rate of SNES, for example. You like, people are like, wow, it's so smooth looking, the pixels, you can hardly notice them, but
right. Though when someone looks at it now, it's just like, well, no, I see them.
Yeah.
They are everywhere.
But with that restriction of pixel art comes this it's almost like it reminds me of poetry he nerded in the sense that
he mused.
Yeah.
He mused nerdily.
Oh yes. Yeah. Video games and poetry are my favorite topics of discussion.
Sorry to derail that train of
The
thought.
Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. How can I compare thee to a summer's day? No, what restrictions of any kind, when applied to a creative endeavor, again, musing nerdily, you come up with creative solutions.
Right.
And sometimes necessity creates something, more beautiful than, the freedom of boundaryless.
Right. They're making
creation.
you kind of think outside the box.
Exactly.
I know, like, that was one thing that Jack White, the main creative force behind the White Stripes, he had all of these restrictions in place for himself and for Meg, while they were performing as the White Stripes. And because of those restrictions, they were able to really kind of create something that was super unique to them.
Absolutely. They definitely had their own sound, and they made a huge splash in that 90s and 2000, early 2000s.
Yeah, right.
Like, but so now we're coming into, we have this era where these creators of video games can kind of choose their own direction rather than being forced to, pick one of the, or being forced to pick pixelated or, whatever, like low polygonal, sort of res, sort of, okay, I don't know what I'm talking about, clearly. But, I'm like, it's funny to me, like, I'm playing a lot of Call of Duty still, and I'm playing, like, Isaac. You got something, that's, like, a somewhat higher bit rate than... It's, like, Isaac is pixelated, but it's certainly got more colors and a smaller pixel size than, like, a SNES game,
Yeah.
But then you got, like, Call of Duty, where they're, like, if Tyler and I were, like... laughing because we spotted that they had reused an asset of these two birch trees and 50 feet apart or something like that. Like, oh hey, it's the same birch trees,
Sure.
Just like what we're getting at is that, like, with Call of Duty, Anything that's slightly less than maximum realistic is like noticeable.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. It catches your attention.
Especially when Minotaur's head goes missing, for example. Millions of dollars in that game, by the way. But no, like I've been playing a lot of COD with my friend Tyler, and then when just every once in a while, his character's head will be gone, and we'll be playing, and I just point it out every time, and it's a good time. Or we'll load into a level, and we'll have like a different character altogether loaded in,
Sure.
and then once we land, we switch back to Igor and Minotaur, basically our.
Players of choice.
Well, you could say that. I was gonna say they're more like a spirit animal. You
Ah,
know?
there you
like
go.
I'm a Igor in my soul. So that means I wear a windbreaker and look like Vladimir Putin.
Wow, that's uncanny.
Yeah. You ever wear windbreakers growing up? Were you alive in the 1990s?
Very much so.
Yeah.
Yes, I was. I'm sure Windbreakers are like those jackets that have that super...
It's a very thin layer of nylon, kind of, or plastic. What is it? I don't know materials.
Right.
I don't know anything. Oh my! What am I doing?
I don't know any... I am so unqualified for all of this.
Oh man, not a good time to have a breakdown.
Right?
But like
I
you
feel like I
picture,
probably have. Yeah.
like an Adidas
Yeah,
jacket
yeah.
with the athletic style,
Right.
like nylon.
Yes.
Out. Yeah,
Yeah, probably tried one at once and like, maybe the cool kids will like me.
it's well when you
Oh, the
you
arm
walk,
swish.
Yeah. Whoosh, 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 whoosh.
Yep,
Or
okay.
If you wear windbreaker pants.
Yep, I definitely I remember the pants. I think I did definitely have some windbreaker pants. I
Yeah.
remember a certain degree of swishing
Absolutely.
from my elementary school days.
There goes Johan.
There he's
hopping on
off
the floor.
off to his next adventure, whatever that may be. But yeah, no, when I was like, you're kind of bringing the whole thing up with the animation and whatnot. Like I was saying with the Mass Effect trilogy, you know, whereas Mass Effect 2 and 3 needed very little work in kind of bringing them up to something that, you know, still looked good on like current gen consoles. Mass Effect 1 needed work because even at the time of its release, which would have been kind of...
I think it might have been a launch title. for
Exactly, yeah. It was
360.
early on the 360's life cycle. And so it does not look great, you know?
Right.
So it's definitely had some visual tweaks to prepare it for its newest release. But even still, yeah, it's still... eh.
I remember just like looking at a developer video about like minor changes they made to the Mass Effect 1,
Yeah.
and like there's the example that I remember clearly was they took out a wall in that one laboratory style area, like because you have like this balcony walkway sort of thing, that you get off the elevator, and in any real building you wouldn't put a pointless wall halfway along this walkway, but they had to put the wall up in the original game because it would the building or the room was so big that they couldn't load it all in at the one
Okay.
time. So
Gotcha.
instead, it's like a workaround that they put the wall up to hide the loading.
Right. Which, yeah, definitely makes sense. And then, but then in like Trails of the Sky, the developer, Nihon Falcom of that series, they've always been, they've been a smaller studio. Even though they're a very long-standing and storied studio over in Japan, they don't have as much name appeal as like Square Enix or Atlas or Sega. Like it's just not as much there,
Right.
And so they frequently have always worked with like less budget,
Sure.
and oftentimes in games, your animation and your budget kind of go hand in hand.
Right.
So Trails in the Sky, even like it's an older game. I don't remember the exact release date off of the top of my head, but it came out on the PlayStation Vita.
Okay.
And it looks like it kind of looks like a very good PlayStation 1 game.
Yeah.
You know, it's to me its graphic style reminds me a lot of the old Harvest Moon games. So when I first started playing it and I look at that visual style, I'm just flooded with all of these feelings of, you know, that specific era in gaming animation.
Yeah.
Which that nostalgia just like boom pulled me right in, and I was just feeling so good about it. And even, you know, in the more recent games from Nihon Falcom, you know, they're only kind of just now starting to get bigger budgets so that they can, you know, put a little bit more
Sure.
into that animation department. But it's never been a big
Yeah.
part of them. But one of the things that, like I was saying with Harvest Moon and Trails in the Sky, is kind of like what we were saying earlier with the pixel art and whatnot.
Yeah.
Because games have tended to kind of like one console generation would have a visual style that looked, you know, very familiar.
Distinct, yeah.
Yeah. And then you've got ones like when you go into, say, the N64 and PlayStation 1 era, and then onward and onward. So it's almost kind of like a little snapshot into
Yeah.
what games were back then.
That's right.
It's funny because a few months ago, I played the first part of the remaster kind of series that they're doing for Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
And that, of course, just from start to finish looks absolutely gorgeous. You know, and it's like the game, I think, is close to 100 gigs. So there's a lot going on. So
Yeah.
you take, like, say, what's a 30-hour game that's, you know, over 100 gigs. Compare that to some of the other games that I've played, which maybe you've got 50, 60, 70 hours of gameplay for 10 or 15 gigs.
Yeah.
You can see that there's just so much extra
Right.
stuff piled on there. But after I finished the first part of Remake, I was thinking, you know what? I've never fully played Final Fantasy VII, you know, and I kind of want to. I still do, so I got Final Fantasy VII, the original, on my Switch. But you know, I remember what it looks like, and it's kind of in addition to like how it plays, it's a fantastic story experience. But it's super clunky, and the graphics of that specific era have aged pretty badly.
You think the low polygonal stuff is kind of gross now?
Yeah. Whereas like pixel art has this kind of thing that can still look nice and appealing
Yeah.
to the eye.
It's funny then because like Final Fantasy VI is sort of like a more attractive looking game. Yeah,
It is.
I'm turned on to then say like Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
But I think that like we'll see some games coming out before you know it. I mean, this is just a wild guess, but like we might see like low polygonal choice games in the sense that like we'll have something that looks more like Donkey Kong 64 in like a third person
Yeah.
platformer or something like
Yeah,
that.
I would agree with that. I think there's definitely going to be studios that, you know, want to kind of elicit that same reaction that has
Yeah.
been done with those pixel art games. You know, it's like most Metroidvanias that I've played,
Yeah.
like indie ones especially, you know, have a graphic style that, you know, is meant to look like, say, either classic Castlevania or Metroid.
Sure.
You know? And so like these games are trying to look like they
Came out 30, 20.
exactly
15
yeah
years
so
ago,
it wouldn't
yeah.
be surprising, especially because like we're now reaching that time, or we probably already have, where like these people who are making their own indie studios and starting to develop their first games, like their first console might be a PlayStation 1 or, you know, an
absolutely.
N64. So like the way that they kind of view their classic games is going to look like that.
Yeah, I think we're in that era, you know.
Definitely getting at it, yeah.
Well, so I mean, I'm trying to decide what who doth slain King Macbeth what graphic style to go with. I mean, I suppose I got to go with 8-bit, you know, but like a late game NES, you know,
Sure.
some kind of just to honor Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
There you go.
But no, it's, you know, with these, like, you know, I'm comparing the Final Fantasy VII remake to like Call of Duty Warzone in my head, and like one is definitely like Final Fantasy. It's always gonna have like a stylistic sort of visual approach.
Yeah, for sure.
And like I've seen screenshots of characters and gameplay from that game, and it's like you know, it still looks like anime in
Yes,
a way.
correct.
But like you have some games that go for like a photorealistic. Like it seems that there will always be like games that try to shoot for the most realistic graphics that they can.
Depending on the game and the story that you want to tell with your game, that makes the most sense.
Right, like I've been playing some Returnal, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And for, you know, it's kind of cool because, you know, it's got dark environments and you have this realistic sort of visual style, but the attacks and from enemies are definitely designed to be as visually clear as possible.
Sure.
You have giant blue orbs flying slowly at you for you to dodge through.
Yeah, right.
It's kind of like you have, like when I've been playing Mario Tennis, I'm thinking about the animation. Like it's a little more cartoony and stylistic for sure.
Right.
Or a lot more.
As most like first party Nintendo games tend to be.
Right. But it sort of had the same kind of animation trick of like color coding the attacks, whether they be tennis volleys or you know, deadly Gorgon strikes from Returnal's tentacly friends. Yeah, I think the animation, I mean, I always hesitate to say something that I think will be like too obvious, but it's like, you know, the animation obviously has like a practical purpose as well as the like emotional purpose.
Well, yeah, no doubt.
Like, so but what I'm getting at is that with something like Returnal or like Isaac, like two roguelite bullet hell games, you know, vastly different in terms of visual style, but they share like the glowing orbs attacks, you know. In Isaac, everything is color coded. If it's like a psychic shot, it's purple. If it's like that's it. No, but like you know, your own tiers start with like a faint blue color, but then like as you get more powerful, they'll often turn red.
Sure.
Or like you know, every item that like affects your tier attack style will have like a different tier shape.
Yeah, and it's a nice visual language that you know you can kind of see it without it having to be explained to you through text or through something else.
Right, and I think that's an interesting little challenge in design space that designers get to make choices in with like how clear and how realistic or stylistic they want to go with these different things. I wanted to talk about a game with the worst graphics I've played in many years, and yet it's a game that I put about 30, 50 hours in or something like that. 3,050 hours. No. What I'm talking about is Luck Be a Landlord. Have you seen that game at all?
I thought you were... Oh, shit, I forgot the name of the game. I thought you were going to reference Getting Over It.
Oh, you know, that's funny. I mean, that definitely made I'll talk about that quick. It just, like, it made a choice to use assets that they
Yes.
found online.
Yes.
And he used like generic like player character number 1 in Unity or something like that.
Right.
I remember hearing like it's been a while now, but like details from the creator just talking about deliberately choosing a generic choice to sort of make an homage to the B games, and
Yeah, right.
this, like hidden section of internet games that
Right.
would use strictly. Yeah, I've talked about it on
That's
the
the thing.
podcast
It's like
before.
it's funny because by making that like conscious choice to do it that way, like even using assets that anyone could use,
Yeah,
by doing that, he's made a game that looks like
its own thing.
exactly, yeah, which is just wild that he's able to do that just basically out of patchwork parts.
Yeah, and again, he makes the point that like something free intrinsically has in terms of designing programs and video games especially, like free assets are basically trash. Like people create them and they create just masses and tons of these assets, and people will pick them like, oh, I need a couch for this room, but I don't really want to spend the time. It's such a small section of time that they'll be in this room. I guess I'll just buy the 10-cent couch on
Sure.
the website. But like it's sort of like, from what I understand, it's just a mass game, like a numbers game,
Yeah.
where they try to make as many assets as they can in order for. So he's made a mountain of trash,
Right.
and it's it's funny that it ended up making like such a huge impact.
Right.
But luck be a landlord.
Right. Yep. Sorry to derail that slightly.
No, not at all. It's like that's if somebody pointed a gun at my head, that's the kind of game that I would make. I can't make a video game. I don't know how, but if I were going to be shot, I would make a game that looks like Luck Be a Landlord because it has massive pixels and it is a one-man development team, and he has made just a gross-looking. You got this like burnt orange background,
Charming.
white slot machines, and then like pixels where you're like, "That's a dog, right? Yeah, that's a dog." And it's just like, I mean, I think it's fun, and they're cute pixels, or pixelated sprites. That's the word, sprites that I'm looking. Like you got a bubble. It's just like, black outline, little white circle on the inside, and then like a blue color on the.
Sure. Yeah.
Stuff that he mustn't make or take more than like 5 minutes per sprite, it seems.
Sure.
It's just like, and yet, you can. I don't know. It makes me think of like an elementary student's doodles.
Yeah.
And yet like if you made a video game out of those doodles, it would be unique, and it does
Exactly.
have a unique look to
Right.
it.
That's the thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
By doing just kind of like with Getting Over It,
Yeah.
that animation is very unique to Luck Be a Landlord. And, there comes that point where also, because there are so many games out,
Yeah.
and again, in the indie space, since so many of them will be using, we'll say, again, pixel art,
Yeah.
if you have found a way to make your game look different than the other ones,
Right.
you have already kind of put yourself in a good position, because pretty much any game, any potential buyer or player of your game, your first impression to them is the animation.
Yeah. That's right.
So like, for just an example, I'll use a game that you and I just started playing this morning.
Yeah. It's
We like well, actually, last night at the time of our recording this, Guilty Gear Strive just came out. And for those who may not be necessarily familiar, Guilty Gear is like kind of this long-running fighting game series that, has always kind of been a bit of a cult hit. Hasn't ever been able to kind of escape the shadow of things like Street Fighter or like Tekken or Mortal Kombat. But like it's biggest than it's ever been.
Yep.
Yeah, and like we got to when we saw the trailer for the new Guilty Gear, like we were all just simply blown away by it.
Right.
It is probably without a doubt the most beautiful looking fighting game I have ever seen.
Right.
They use kind of a really high definition, what looks to be kind of hand drawn. It's kind of in between. I watched a video on how Guilty Gear animates, and it's like it looks somewhat drawn, but also somewhat not. But it's immensely eye-catching, and all of the characters have super unique visual designs that you can just spot, and it just makes sense. And it's just like from the moment of that first trailer, the sound design had a part of it too, but like the visuals that we were seeing, it just showcased and put this idea in our minds that it was just like, this game is going to be fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's like that's a tactic or a design choice that, of course, for the most part, really doesn't become available unless you have a studio that has money.
Right.
So it's very similar. Like, say, the first times that maybe we saw trailers for, I'm thinking like Red Dead Redemption 2 or Uncharted 4, Last of Us 2.
Yeah.
By seeing the trailers for these games and the visuals that, by seeing them, it's like they're almost kind of like the visuals that are being promised to us that we are going to be able to see in these games. And they give this impression of like, holy shit, this is going to be so good.
Yeah. Like, just, Guilty Gear Strive has this anime sort of aesthetic as well as like this 2.5D, 3D kind of background. But what you don't see in the old kind of anime Guilty Gear games and like basically any anime fighter that's come before Strive is this kind of sense of dimension, like this 3D sort of, like, these characters, while they look like this, they still exist in a 3D space, and it makes it feel like a more, I don't know, realistic.
It has like some tangibility to it.
Absolutely, and the lighting in the game is incredible. Like, depending on what level you're on, your character is going to look just pretty different. I keep thinking of the Holy Order stage, like Kai Kisk's stage, like just the sun is so bright, and yet there's like some kind of terrace overhead or whatever, and you get this like this filtered light that just looks beautiful for these characters, and but it also has it has like a UI as well as like visual cues that are super cool and better than ever before for fighting game players, and anybody who's playing that is now a fighting game player.
Right.
So what I'm getting at is that like the counter, or not counter, but the combo counter.
Yeah.
Is enormous in this game, and it's so enormous that some players complained about it.
Yeah. I definitely thought it was a little obtrusive in earlier versions.
Sure.
I think they tweaked it a little bit.
You might have gotten used to it a little bit too.
That's also possible.
It's just like this. But I never used to pay attention to counter or combo counters until like maybe I'm like, oh crap, I just did like a 7-hit combo, didn't I? I'm like,
right.
Then I look, but like when I'm doing a combo in Guilty Gear Strive, I'm like, yes, 2, 3, 4, let's go.
Yeah, right. You get like that that little bit of blast of dopamine as it's going.
Absolutely.
It's just like, yep, it's hitting. This is still a combo. I don't know how I'm doing it, but this is still a combo.
It's day one tech,
It is, yeah. We both played the betas, before the game, but I still would not say that we.
We're masters by any means.
Yeah, it's going to take a lot of practice, but thankfully there seems to be enough people around us that are interested in the game that we're going to be able to get a lot of good time out of it.
If it's not obvious to the listener, I'm extremely pumped this game is out.
Exactly, yeah, same here.
It's like not only is it like Dragon Ball FighterZ ended up being like one of my top 5 games of all time.
Yeah,
and I think this is the game to unseat it.
Really,
like it's
Holy
gonna be
shit.
like it's certainly gonna be my main fighting game for the
a
foreseeable
little while.
future.
Yeah.
And
I can't see anything coming out that's gonna
yeah
unseat it.
like it's. I thought Fighters had just incredible animation as well.
Which it do.
And the cool thing about Fighters is it's got a style that really matches both the television show and the manga. Like it just looks like you're playing those things.
Exactly. And especially some of the special moves that you do look like shot for shot removed from like the anime or the manga. And so for so many people, when they have been playing it, it's just like, I am playing Dragon Ball.
That's
right.
Like
it's
this
like,
is finally a Dragon Ball game.
Exactly. Even though there's been countless, this one has just like created that feeling of being in Dragon Ball just perfectly, really.
And it's got the same sort of 2.5D thing that we were just talking about. But like, it blew my mind when I saw Goku reflect a Ki Blast, and it just traveled seamlessly into the background and broke the roof of the World Martial Arts Tournament building.
It's super cool.
Yeah, it's like, oh, this is actually, like, what? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so to see, so that's just the animation aspect of Guilty Gear Strive, and this game looks better than Fighters, and I thought Fighters was beautiful to, like, 10 out of 10 animation.
Right.
And, but it's also the same developer so I know that the fighting is going to evolve and feel really good throughout the whole time.
As you continue to learn and grow with the game. Right.
I have a very good feeling about how Strive is going to be.
Yeah, I do too. It's going to be a lot of fun. You can probably expect us to talk about this game a little bit more going in the future. But this is going to transition, I think, fairly seamlessly into this other topic that I would definitely wanted to dig into in this episode. And it's like, whereas games like we were just saying with Dragon Ball FighterZ and Strive that, at the time of their release, look beautiful, and because of the animation style that they've chosen, will probably continue to look good
forever,
for a long time.
Right.
Yeah. Not every game gets to do that. I mean, even like previous Guilty Gears still look really good when you look at them.
Yeah.
But like, to use another fighting game as an example, like, Mortal Kombat 11 looks beautiful, and they're like, the developer of Mortal Kombat, NetherRealm, tends to kind of follow the same kind of design principle as, say, a lot of other big studios. Like, say, the ones who make Call of Duty or, Last of Us, Red Dead. It's just like, we want to use the best of what is here right now, and go for as like what looks to be the most realistic. But the downside of that is constantly changing.
Yep.
And so, while Mortal Kombat 11 looks beautiful right now, it's by the time Mortal Kombat 12 comes out, it's gonna look gross.
You think so?
I think so. Well, I
think Mortal Kombat X looks gross.
I think Mortal Kombat X looks hideous.
Really?
Oh yeah. Like when I go back and play, like, because when I was getting ready for 11, I went back and played a little bit of X, and I definitely think
bad.
Yeah, and I mean, and Mortal Kombat 9 as a result, also like
that one definitely has not aged as well
as
X, which is newer, obviously.
Right.
But, like, you look at the female characters in MK9 especially, it's just like, ugh. And I'm not
very
saying that as like a creep. It's just it's because they look so sexualized.
exactly like very gross over sexualization.
Yeah, and like just the characters, they're like mannequins, you know.
Yes, I remember like specifically when I was looking at some of the character designs, like the character model for Sonya Blade
Yes.
looks like basically like what the costume would be if someone made a porn ripoff of Mortal Kombat. Like, that is not a military uniform.
No.
Like, people are not going, like,
Yeah.
people aren't hunting terrorists looking like that.
Lieutenant Blade, you forgot your shirt.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Lieutenant, that is not regulation.
Yeah.
How did you even get combat boots with heels like that? Like, it just,
And she's like, let me show you, you know, what this outfit can do. And
yeah, it's really, really gross. But then, like, so then other studios, I'm gonna go with Rockstar now.
Okay.
So like, Grand Theft Auto 5, you know, at its release, looks really good, and it's
Yeah.
you know had some visual updates as that they've been you know porting it and updating it 50 or so times so they
Yeah.
can keep milking the online service. But Grand Theft Auto 4
Yeah.
looks gross.
Yeah, you know, I think both like the GTA series has always had a touch of stylism to it.
A little bit, yeah.
It like the pastel almost not that that's the wrong word. It's just like this sort of like color choice, like this weird brightness to it in
Yeah.
GTA 5, for example. And like like you see in loading screens of like all the GTA games, you get like these almost well, they're cartoon images of the video, like the universe that
Yeah,
they're
right.
in.
Yeah.
It seems to me that they're trying to like bring those to life a little bit, and not like it's not like a cartoon game or anything like by that any means, but it's just like it's a I don't know. It's
Just
like
subtle stylization.
Exactly. It's like a tilted sort of view at life, like
Which
you
is
know,
Grand Theft Auto just in
Exactly.
general. Everything about Grand Theft Auto is just kind of that little tweak,
it twisted. Yeah.
a version of reality. Yeah.
Exactly.
But yeah, that's like, to me, that's always kind of been the downside of making your game look as good as it can. You know, going as close as you can to photorealism.
Yeah. Right.
Because that is like
it's evolving. At all
exactly
times.
as technology continues to develop, you know, your game will quickly descend into that uncanny valley.
Yeah.
You know, sort of thing very quickly. And I mean, that's not just, you know, video game animation, like
Yeah.
special effects in movies. I mean, you just think you can even look at, say, how the visuals look in, say, the first Iron Man versus Avengers Endgame.
Right.
Like, I mean, there's no comparison. Like, it just these movies continue to just look better and better and better.
Yeah.
And
Early
also-
CGI. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. And always going back to kind of the money thing, if you are not one of these really, really big studios, but you still are going to try to make your game look realistic, like there's going to be these like kind of weird compromises,
Sure.
and that's going to, I feel like few things date your game more than the animation.
Right. You know, there's always gameplay hiccups that, like,
Yeah.
I can't believe I still have to do this in this game. Or
Right.
whatever. But like, no, it's odd to like. There is when you look at like an Alien or, you know, any like late '80s movie that's still used like real
Practical effects.
practical effects.
Yeah.
Like those age so much better. Everybody says,
No doubt, yeah.
like, than early CGI. You think about like the first or the episodes 1 through 3 of Star Wars. They had like terrible CGI by our standards now.
Yes.
That's so bad that they got redone in like
The 90s.
several years ago.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean,
I remember the special editions when I was a kid.
like,
Yeah.
episodes 4 through 6 got remade as well, but
Yeah.
like even I just think of like, you know, episodes 1 through 3, like Yoda got changed out altogether, and then like they they put like a CGI Yoda in instead of the practical Yoda.
Yeah.
To match like the.
Right. Episode 1 had practical Yoda.
That's right.
And then 2 and 3 had CGI Yoda, especially because CGI Yoda was having lightsaber battles.
That's right.
You couldn't have done that with a practical one. Well, you could have.
That would have been amazing.
It would have. Yeah, that would have been a feat of puppetry that could not be topped for as long as people live.
I'm just picturing like some guy in all black. Well, it would be green screened out in realism, but
Yep.
like, what if they just did like a play acting sort of like stage play sort of style where they got like a guy in all black like flipping this puppet around? Just, like, I don't know. I can just picture like the little string on Yoda's arm as he's like holding the lightsaber against Dooku's lightsaber.
Yeah, right.
I don't know. But
The other thing with practical effects in movies is because then your actor actually has something to act with.
that's true.
You know?
Instead of like, look at the tennis ball and tell it your feelings, you know?
Exactly. Right, right.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's like the technology, like we were saying, is still continuing to grow, and it's I think we're still going to continue to see, especially because we're just now starting the next console generation. But
Yeah.
it's going to just keep looking better and better. Which for me, the downside of that is going to be it's going to create that much more of kind of a schism between like lower budget and higher budget.
Sure.
Because as that technology continues to develop, your studio is just going to have to keep being bigger and bigger so that you can make a game that will fully utilize
That's right.
all of the potential that console will give you.
Development cycles are going to start being longer and longer
Right.
as well. And
I mean, yeah, you
Johan
just-
his face right into the mic. And say something.
But no, like, I mean, just, you can kind of look about, the famously long and now pretty widely known turmoil of developing Cyberpunk. Like that has just made this, all the more difficult. And, with, and Rockstar with the development of Red Dead 2, very similar. Like that took a long time to develop. But, I think that's, like we were kind of going in earlier, I feel like you're onto something in where the indie scene is probably going to continue to develop in the fact that we're going to start seeing more and more games that are going to be using visual styles that we've seen before, maybe around that
Right.
N64, Saturn, PlayStation, like that. I
That'd
don't
be
know what
cool.
console
Yeah.
generation that would be called.
Oh, yeah.
That's like second. No, that wouldn't be second. That'd be like third or fourth, wouldn't it?
I think, I think NES was third or fourth.
Oh, was it? Okay.
So we're a little bit down the line.
Right. But still, whatever
yeah.
generation it was, I think now we're going to be seeing more and more games that will probably be using that.
So,
And it's funny, like I like what you were saying earlier, if you had the opportunity for what kind of visual style you would do Who Slain King Macbeth.
yeah.
I definitely feel, if I ever get around to learning how to develop the game that's in my head,
Yeah.
I'd probably want to have it look, I would probably
Look
go
like MK9.
Yes, absolutely like MK9. No, I'd probably want it to look, I would say, kind of like how Harvest Moon Back to Nature or Trails
Sure.
in the Sky looked. There's a certain something about that visual that I really like. I antiquate it with some of my favorite gaming experiences.
Okay.
And so that's something that I'd like to showcase. And for people who would maybe be seeing like a trailer for it, if they had a similar like gaming
Yeah.
background that I did, they would have that thing. That first impression would be, this is the kind of game that I'm looking for.
It's that visual style to me. They have been. They drew on that for Octopath Traveler. Am I wrong?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the new, like the same project by Square Enix, or the next project in that vein, was like Triangle Strategy. I think they called it. It's
yeah, that's
their-
like the code name for it
Yeah,
right now.
right.
And that looks, to me, that looks just beautiful.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's a couple of other studios that work with Square Enix. I think they're called like RPG Factory or something
Okay.
like that, and they've had 2 games of that style. I think it's Lost Sphere and I Am Setsuna,
Okay.
and they also kind of have that style,
Okay.
you know, and so it feels like an early RPG, you know, PS1 era RPG, and
Yeah.
when I see the trailers for that, I'm like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Sure.
But that's just the kind of stuff that I gravitate to when I see it.
So here's, simple questions for you that
Yes.
take some thought anyway. I say that not to insult us, but rather to fill time with my words as I keep talking. Simple question for you.
All right.
What is the best looking realistic game, visual style, and the best looking stylistic style for you? And I'll go first.
All right,
because
yeah,
I
if you've
started
got 'em.
thinking
Yep,
about
yep.
this. Like the best looking realistic visual style game to me. It had been The Last of Us Part 2.
Right.
But I've been playing Demon Souls, and
Oh,
that's
yeah.
got some stylistic touches to it. But thanks to the new, graphics that are capable with the next generation, just the lighting and the frame rate, basically, this whole, I don't know, it's just really good looking.
It is.
hard,
Yeah. It's an exceedingly good looking game.
and it's hard. It's funny to say, for a realistic looking game, just how to describe it. What do you like about the animation of Demon Souls? Oh, it looks good. It looks realistic. What does it look like? Well, it looks like real life, I guess. But not really. I don't know.
Right. It's a little bit of both, you know?
Yeah, and so do you have a realistic looking game to counter that?
Just like from recent memory, I would probably give that to the definitive edition of Mafia.
Oh, sure.
Like that looks really good,
Yeah.
you know, and it utilizes a lot of just cinematic technique,
Okay.
you know, and so the
Yeah.
visuals of it are really good, and they're displayed in ways that are really appealing to the eye.
Nice.
And also like the world of it looks very good. The gameplay HUD really doesn't intrude that much,
Yeah.
you know, so it just like say if you set a waypoint, you know, for you to get to a place, instead of it like being this really big thing, what it does is like you'll be driving and this little thing that would pop up pointing to a direction where you should be going, like in the specific place that you would see, say, a stop or a yield sign. So it pops up in very seamless ways and just kind of keeps you going. It's just very, very smooth all the way through. So like for realism, I'd give it to Mafia.
Nice.
And for stylizing, I got to give it to Persona 5.
I was thinking about that game.
Like Persona 5 has style in every single thing it does. Like all of the menu things also have style. It's just, and like you were saying earlier with in Isaac with the color coding of things, every character like has like color coding going on with them.
Yeah.
So like with some of the side characters, like the guy who runs the like the weapon shop or the lady who runs the clinic, the HUD menus for their shops look different visually. And
That's right.
and all of the character portraits are done just exceedingly well. The battle animation looks good. It's just the game just oozes style out of every single pore.
That's right. And the funny thing to me is that, like, the HUD and the UI and basically any illustrated portion of that game looks phenomenal. And yet, like, the graphical style of the polygons, the characters, like, those seem to be stuck in, like, late PS2 era.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think they would be, like, making reference to the previous entries of the series. Like, after I played Persona 5, I went into Persona 4 for a little bit.
Yep.
Didn't get to finish it, but I just like the visual, the polygonal sections of the game are the same looking as the Persona 5, you know.
Right. Persona 5 kind of digs more into the vibrant cartoon cell shading that 4 does. 4's kind of visuals are quite a bit more subdued. But yeah, outside of that, the graphical thing it's not that stark of a change.
Right. Sorry. Cat. I was all like running out of time. Like, I guess I'm gonna say Persona 5, and then you said Persona 5. It's a good choice, but like, I wish I could give it to something more modern or something indie or something like that, but for like just a pixelated, maybe that should have been a third category, but I gotta go with the style, just the beauty of Link to the Past. It's such a good looking game to me.
It really is.
Whenever I turn that game on and they have 3D graphics for all of 20 seconds as the Triforce like rotates.
Oh yeah.
And then you see just like this, probably the coolest looking start menu ever for me.
It's up there for sure.
And no, it's just got some like beautiful colors and in pixel art.
Yeah, for sure.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
It's wonderful. Yeah.
All right. Do you have anything you'd like to add about animation and graphics and visual styles of video games?
You know what? I think honestly we've covered it.
Yeah.
You know, or at least, you know, everything that I can think of.
Right. And neither of us are really visual artists. Neither of us are programmers. But we have played a lot of video games.
Correct.
And we will say opinions, whether they
whether how much weight they have or not.
Yeah, that's right. So I appreciate you listening to this episode, and I think we hope to hear you hope for you to hear us.
There you go.
On the next episode. I confused myself.
All right. Well, until you guys hear from now, you've got me confused. Until you guys hear from us next time.
Yeah,
have a good couple weeks.
Thanks for listening. Bye.